By the time we turned toward Earth, the war was already lost. Not officially. Coalition broadcasts still spoke of resistance, of regrouping fleets, and upcoming counteroffensives. Admirals issued confident statements across secure channels. Politicians promised victory if every member world endured a little longer. None of us aboard the battleship Resolute believed them. We had seen what remained of the Third Defense Fleet. We had watched entire formations disappear under enemy fire before firing a second salvo. We had received distress calls from allied worlds that went silent one by one. Every month, the map of coalition territory shrank. Every month, another star system vanished behind enemy occupation lines. The Resolute had survived only because it was too damaged to be worth chasing. Our engines were failing. Half our weapons were non-functional. Several decks remained sealed after catastrophic hull breaches. Emergency supports held sections of the vessel together where structural beams had been torn apart during combat. More than 4,000 crew members had boarded before the war. Fewer than 2,000 remained. Those numbers haunted every corridor. The atmosphere recyclers malfunctioned daily. Power shortages forced rotating blackouts throughout the ship. Medical supplies had reached critical levels weeks earlier. Every repair required scavenging components from systems that were somehow even less important. The enemy had not destroyed us. Time was finishing the job. We searched for assistance across dozens of systems. Most refused. Some apologized before closing communications. Others did not bother pretending. The coalition was retreating, and nobody wanted to attract attention by helping a crippled military vessel. Any world providing support risked becoming the next target. Fear had become more powerful than loyalty. Eventually, even our navigation officers stopped suggesting destinations. Then an old astrophysicist named Valen discovered something hidden inside an archived star chart database. A location. A world. Earth. At first, nobody took the suggestion seriously. Humanity occupied little space in modern galactic discussions. Their records were outdated. Most information about them was centuries old. They were described as an isolated species located near the outer regions of explored space. Their diplomatic activity was minimal. Their military influence appeared insignificant. Few coalition citizens had ever met a human. The consensus was simple. Earth was irrelevant, which made it our only option. No strategically valuable world would risk helping us. No major power wanted involvement. Perhaps an overlooked species with no stake in the conflict might offer basic repairs. At least enough to keep us moving. So we altered course. The journey took weeks. During that time, additional systems failed. One engine shut down permanently. Several life support sectors operated below safety margins. More crew members died from injuries sustained months earlier. Many expected the ship to fall apart before reaching its destination. Yet somehow we endured. When Sol finally appeared on our sensors, something immediately felt wrong. Not threatening. Strange. Long-range scans detected enormous amounts of traffic throughout the system. Cargo vessels moved in carefully organized patterns. Orbital infrastructure surrounded multiple planets. Communication networks carried volumes of data exceeding expectations for a supposedly isolated civilization. The closer we traveled, the less the official records made sense. Earth looked nothing like a forgotten world. A transmission arrived before we crossed the system boundary. The message contained navigation assistance, docking instructions, emergency support frequencies, and a direct offer of humanitarian aid. No negotiations. No conditions. No demands. Just help. For several seconds, nobody on the bridge spoke. After years of war, simple kindness felt unfamiliar. Human rescue craft launched before we even reached orbit. Medical teams boarded first. They moved with remarkable speed and efficiency. Injured crew were transferred to treatment facilities. The critical patients received care immediately. Human doctors worked alongside our specialists without hesitation despite vast biological differences. Next came engineering teams. Hundreds of them. They spread throughout the vessel carrying equipment unlike anything we had seen. They inspected damaged reactors, examined fractured structural supports, scanned weapon systems, analyzed propulsion networks. Nothing escaped their attention. I accompanied the lead engineer during part of the assessment. She appeared calm while reviewing damage reports that would have horrified most shipbuilders. Finally, I asked the question everyone wanted answered. How long will repairs take? She studied a display for several moments. Repairs, she replied.
Yes.
Assuming replacement materials are available. A small smile crossed her face. The kind someone gives when they realize a misunderstanding exists. She looked around at shattered bulkheads, exposed circuitry, ruined weapon mounts, and entire sections held together by emergency braces. Then she shook her head. If we repaired this ship, she said, you'd leave with the same weaknesses that nearly got everyone killed. I wasn't sure what she meant. Neither was anyone else listening. The engineer closed her scanner and looked directly at me. Repairing this vessel would be a waste. My stomach tightened. For a moment, I thought she was telling us the ship was beyond saving. Then she continued. We're not going to repair it. Confusion spread across the bridge. The engineer's smile widened slightly. We're going to rebuild it. At that moment, none of us realized that humanity had just made a decision that would eventually change the course of an entire galactic war. The reconstruction began the following day. At least, humans called it reconstruction. From our perspective, it looked more like controlled destruction. Massive sections of the Resolute were removed and carried away by automated platforms. Entire decks vanished. Damaged armor plating was stripped from the hull. Obsolete power conduits were extracted by machines that moved with incredible precision. Systems we had considered salvageable disappeared without discussion. Several members of our engineering corps protested. The humans listened politely. Then they showed us simulations. Within minutes, every objection ended. For the first time, we understood how differently humans approached engineering. Most species built equipment to satisfy requirements. Humans built equipment to exceed them. They did not ask whether a component still functioned. They asked whether something better could replace it. That philosophy seemed embedded into everything they created. Weeks passed, and curiosity gradually replaced our skepticism. The orbital shipyard where the Resolute rested was larger than many coalition military stations. Thousands of workers, drones, and autonomous construction systems operated continuously. New vessels arrived daily. Cargo traffic flowed through the facility without interruption. Yet despite the scale, there was no visible chaos. Everything moved according to a plan only humans seemed capable of understanding. As reconstruction progressed, we received limited access to technical briefings. Those briefings left our engineers speechless. The new armor was stronger while weighing significantly less. Power distribution efficiency increased by nearly 40%. Shield generators were redesigned using principles none of our scientists had considered practical. Even the ship's internal structure changed. Human engineers reinforced critical sections while eliminating unnecessary mass throughout the vessel. Every modification served multiple purposes simultaneously. Nothing existed without reason. One conversation remained permanently etched into my memory. I asked a human engineer why they invested so much effort into a foreign warship. The answer came immediately. Because someday your crew might depend on it. The response seemed obvious to her. To us, it was astonishing. Most civilizations measured value through cost. Humans measured value through outcomes. That difference explained far more than technology ever could. While reconstruction continued, our crews spent increasing amounts of time interacting with Earth's population. We expected a secretive society guarding advanced knowledge. Instead, we found openness. Human citizens seemed endlessly curious. They asked questions about our biology, culture, language, history, and homeworlds. They wanted to learn everything. More surprisingly, they shared their own history freely. A history that explained why humanity approached problems differently from the rest of the galaxy. Earth had never been an easy world. Predators, natural disasters, harsh climates, disease, resource competition, and centuries of conflict had forced humanity to adapt constantly. Every challenge produced solutions. Every setback generated innovation. Failure was treated as a lesson rather than a verdict. Their civilization had been shaped by survival. That mindset remained visible everywhere. Human researchers studied coalition technology with enthusiasm bordering on obsession. Within weeks, they identified flaws our designers had overlooked for generations. Within months, they proposed improvements that increased performance dramatically. The speed was almost frightening. Technologies that required decades of development elsewhere evolved in human laboratories at astonishing rates. Eventually, the rebuilt Resolute entered final testing. None of us recognized the vessel. Its silhouette remained familiar, but everything beneath the surface had changed. The first engine trial exceeded original specifications by such a large margin that our sensors initially reported errors. They weren't errors. The ship truly had become faster. Weapon diagnostics produced similar results. Targeting systems responded more accurately. Energy reserves lasted longer. Defensive capabilities increased beyond anything expected from a vessel of its class. The old Resolute had been a survivor. The new Resolute was a warship. News of the transformation spread quickly. The coalition representatives traveled to Earth to inspect the vessel personally. Most arrived expecting exaggeration. None left unconvinced. The evidence surrounded them. The ship performed exactly as promised. Perhaps even better. Naturally, discussions turned toward compensation. Resources, technology exchanges, strategic agreements. Coalition officials offered everything they could. Human authorities declined. The decision shocked everyone. No government rejected opportunities on that scale. Yet Earth did. Their representatives thanked us for the offers and explained that helping those in need did not require payment. Many assumed it was diplomacy. I no longer believe that. Humans genuinely meant it. The day before our departure, I stood overlooking the shipyard and noticed something unusual. Dozens of damaged vessels occupied nearby docks. Some belonged to coalition members. Others came from independent systems. Several originated from civilizations with no formal alliance whatsoever. Every vessel showed signs of reconstruction. Every vessel was receiving the same attention we had received. When I asked a human administrator about it, she simply nodded. You're not the only ones who arrived needing help. At that moment, a realization settled over me. Humanity had not rebuilt the Resolute because we were special. They had rebuilt it because helping others was what they had chosen to do. Then the administrator revealed something even more surprising. The upgraded ships already leaving Earth were changing the course of battles across multiple sectors. Humanity had not entered the war. Not officially. But the galaxy was beginning to feel the consequences of their involvement. And this was only the beginning. The true impact of humanity's work became apparent less than a month after we departed Earth. The Resolute rejoined coalition forces near the Varken corridor, one of the few remaining regions still resisting enemy expansion. Commanders expected another defensive operation. The objective was simple: delay the enemy long enough for civilian evacuations to finish. Nobody expected victory. Then the battle began. Enemy ships entered the system with their usual confidence. They had defeated coalition fleets repeatedly. Their formations were disciplined, their weapons powerful, and their commanders experienced. Everything followed familiar patterns. Until the Resolute engaged. Our upgraded sensors detected hostile movements before they entered effective firing range. Targeting systems calculated firing solutions faster than any coalition vessel present. New power systems fed weapons continuously without the fluctuations that previously limited performance. The first exchange stunned everyone. Enemy vessels that should have survived direct impacts suffered catastrophic damage. Our shields absorbed punishment that would have crippled the original ship. For the first time in years, an enemy advance slowed. Then it stopped. Then it retreated. Coalition forces spent days reviewing battle recordings because nobody believed the results. The explanations were simple. Human upgrades worked. News spread rapidly across military networks. Captains began requesting transfers to vessels rebuilt on Earth. Fleet commanders sought technical reports. Scientists demanded access to engineering data. The more evidence appeared, the harder it became to ignore. Human modifications were changing outcomes. Not occasionally, consistently. Soon, additional ships returned from Earth. Then more. Every arrival brought similar reports. Damaged frigates returned stronger than modern cruisers. Aging carriers operated with unprecedented efficiency. Logistics vessels traveled farther while consuming fewer resources. The pattern became impossible to dismiss. Earth was quietly transforming fleets across coalition territory. Naturally, political leaders approached humanity with a formal proposal. They requested military participation. The response surprised many. Humanity declined, at least publicly. Earth maintained its neutral status. No human warships entered coalition space. No military alliance was announced. No declarations were made. Instead, Earth continued accepting damaged vessels. Shipyards expanded. New facilities appeared throughout the solar system. Refugee fleets, civilian transports, exploration vessels, and military craft all received assistance. The flow of traffic increased every month. Thousands of personnel passed through human space. Many returned home carrying stories that sounded impossible. Stories about orbital construction platforms larger than cities. Stories about factories capable of producing advanced components in astonishing quantities. Stories about engineers who treated impossible deadlines as personal challenges. Most outsiders focused on the ships. That was a mistake. The ships were only part of what humanity provided. Human analysts began sharing recommendations with coalition commanders. Initially, those recommendations concerned logistics, supply routes, maintenance schedules, fleet coordination. Nothing dramatic. Yet every suggestion improved efficiency. Every adjustment saved resources. Every recommendation produced measurable results. Eventually, commanders started asking for more advice. Human analysts examined battle records, enemy formations, communication patterns, and strategic deployments. Their conclusions repeatedly proved accurate. They identified vulnerabilities others missed, predicted enemy responses, recommended operational changes that reduced casualties. The strange part was how casually they accomplished it, as if solving large-scale military problems was merely another engineering challenge. Months passed. Enemy advances slowed throughout multiple sectors. Several occupied systems were liberated. Coalition morale improved for the first time since the war began. That improvement created a new problem. The enemy noticed. Their intelligence divisions began investigating Earth. Reports reached their leadership describing upgraded coalition vessels and unusual strategic improvements. At first, they dismissed the information. Humanity possessed no significant military reputation. Historical records described them as peripheral participants in galactic affairs. Their economy appeared moderate. Their territory remained relatively compact. They seemed unimportant. That assumption proved disastrous. Enemy spies observed growing traffic entering the solar system. They tracked vessels arriving damaged and leaving transformed. They intercepted fragments of communications mentioning human assistance. Still, their conclusions remained flawed. They viewed Earth as a supplier, a workshop, a supporting actor hiding behind coalition forces. They never considered another possibility, that humanity was preparing for something larger. I began suspecting the truth after receiving an invitation to visit Earth again. This time, I toured facilities normally restricted to foreign personnel. What I witnessed raised disturbing questions. Human shipyards operated at extraordinary capacity. Research complexes expanded continuously. Manufacturing output increased month after month. Everywhere I looked, construction was underway. Yet official statements continued emphasizing neutrality. The contradiction bothered me. One evening, I asked a human administrator a direct question. If your species isn't preparing for war, why are you building so much? The human considered the question carefully. Then she answered, preparation isn't the same thing as participation. At the time, the response seemed evasive. Later, I understood exactly what she meant. The enemy eventually reached its own conclusion. Unable to stop coalition recovery, they decided the source of that recovery had to be eliminated. Their leadership approved a new strategy. Instead of targeting fleets, they would target the civilization supporting them. Massive invasion groups began assembling beyond known borders. Attack plans were finalized. Supply chains mobilized. Entire armadas changed course. Earth was about to become the primary objective of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. When warnings finally reached the solar system, humanity's reaction was not panic. It was confirmation, as though they had been expecting this moment all along. And across Earth, systems the galaxy had never seen quietly began to activate. The enemy invasion force arrived in the solar system 6 months later. The scale alone was intended to break resistance before fighting even began. Thousands of warships emerged from jump space in coordinated waves. Heavy assault carriers, planetary bombardment platforms, siege cruisers, logistics groups, and command vessels filled sensor displays across multiple regions of the system. It was the largest concentration of military power assembled since the war began. Their commanders expected fear. Instead, they received a transmission. Earth's government offered one final opportunity to withdraw. No threats accompanied the message. No dramatic speeches. No declarations of superiority. Simply a warning that crossing designated engagement boundaries would be considered an act of war. The enemy leadership interpreted the transmission as weakness. They ordered the advance to continue. That decision became one of the greatest military mistakes in galactic history. The first surprise appeared near the outer regions of the solar system. For years, astronomers across the galaxy had observed what appeared to be ordinary industrial infrastructure scattered among distant planets and resource zones. Those installations were not ordinary. The moment hostilities officially began, they transformed. Massive defensive platforms emerged from structures previously disguised as mining facilities. Hidden weapon arrays activated across countless locations. Long-dormant systems awakened simultaneously through networks prepared years in advance. The enemy's front formations encountered resistance before reaching their primary objectives. Then the second surprise arrived. Human warships. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. Entire fleets emerged from locations previously believed to contain civilian infrastructure. Vast shipyards opened sections concealed behind enormous industrial frameworks. Construction facilities became deployment hubs. Manufacturing centers became military logistics bases. Humanity had spent years hiding military strength behind productive capacity. The galaxy had mistaken preparation for commerce. The enemy paid for that misunderstanding immediately. What followed differed completely from traditional warfare. Most species relied on predictable doctrines refined over centuries. Human commanders treated doctrine as a starting point. Their fleets adapted continuously. Attack formations shifted during combat. Weapons platforms exchanged battlefield roles. Drone swarms executed operations that would have required thousands of crew members elsewhere. Every encounter forced the enemy to confront tactics they had never seen before. Human forces rarely attacked the strongest positions directly. They targeted coordination. Communication relays disappeared. Supply convoys vanished. Navigation systems failed. Command structures fractured under relentless pressure. Instead of fighting enemy strength, humans dismantled the systems supporting it. Within days, invasion momentum slowed. Within weeks, entire offensive groups became isolated. Coalition observers struggled to understand what they were witnessing. Military academies taught that wars were won through superior firepower and numerical advantage. Humanity demonstrated something different. Wars were won through information, logistics, and adaptability. Their fleets seemed capable of responding to changing circumstances faster than opponents could react. Whenever the enemy developed countermeasures, humans adjusted tactics. Whenever weaknesses appeared, humans exploited them immediately. Nothing remained static. Nothing became predictable. The psychological impact proved devastating. Enemy commanders accustomed to controlling engagements suddenly found themselves responding instead of leading. Every plan encountered unexpected resistance. Every advance generated new complications. Every victory produced hidden costs. The invasion slowly transformed into a retreat. Meanwhile, Earth's industrial capacity continued expanding. That shocked coalition analysts more than battlefield successes. Most civilizations reduced production flexibility during wartime. Humanity increased it. Ship losses were replaced rapidly. Damaged vessels returned to service at astonishing speed. Supply shortages never materialized. The same engineering culture that rebuilt refugee fleets now sustained military operations on an unprecedented scale. As months passed, the battlefield expanded beyond the solar system. Human fleets launched counteroffensives. Enemy strongholds that had resisted coalition attacks for years suddenly faced coordinated assaults combining human strategy with coalition manpower. System after system fell. Occupation forces retreated. Liberated worlds rejoined the war effort. Hope spread faster than military reports. For the first time, people across the galaxy believed victory was possible. I participated in several campaigns alongside human task groups. One pattern appeared repeatedly. Human commanders rarely celebrated individual victories. They focused on objectives beyond the immediate battle. Every operation connected to a larger strategy. Every success created opportunities elsewhere. It often felt as though they were fighting 10 moves ahead of everyone else. Eventually, even enemy leadership recognized the danger. Intelligence reports confirmed what they had previously refused to accept. Humanity was not merely another participant in the conflict. Humanity had become its defining force. The invasion of Earth had achieved the exact opposite of its intended purpose. Instead of removing support for the coalition, it had awakened a civilization capable of reshaping the entire war. Then came the announcement that changed everything. Human leadership revealed the existence of a classified operation developed during years of observation and preparation. They had studied enemy command structures, analyzed strategic behavior, mapped logistical dependencies, tracked leadership movements, gathered information on a scale nobody had imagined. The goal was no longer to win battles. The goal was to end the war itself. Across coalition space, fleets began mobilizing for the largest offensive in recorded history. And for the first time since the conflict began, it was the enemy that feared what was coming next. The offensive began with a level of coordination the galaxy had never witnessed. For years, the enemy had relied on centralized command networks connecting military sectors across occupied territory. Those networks allowed rapid deployments, resource distribution, and strategic control over thousands of systems. Human analysts had spent years studying every part of that structure. Now they moved against all of it at once. Coalition fleets launched synchronized attacks across dozens of regions. Supply corridors were severed. Communication hubs disappeared. Strategic shipyards fell under assault. Command stations lost contact with neighboring sectors within hours. The enemy attempted to respond. Their orders never arrived. Entire military groups suddenly found themselves isolated. For the first time since the war began, confusion spread through enemy ranks instead of coalition forces. I served aboard the Resolute during the campaign. The ship that had once drifted toward Earth barely holding itself together now led strike formations through liberated territory. Looking around the bridge, I often remembered the desperate vessel we had brought into the solar system years earlier. Nothing remained of that weakness. Not in the ship. Not in the people serving aboard it. Every fleet participating in the offensive carried evidence of human influence. Some vessels had been rebuilt on Earth. Others used human design systems. Many commanders had studied human operational methods. The enemy was not facing one civilization. They were facing a coalition transformed by one. Human strategy, focused on momentum. Whenever resistance collapsed in one sector, nearby fleets advanced immediately. No opportunity remained unused. No delay allowed the enemy time to recover. World after world regained its freedom. Prison facilities were opened. Occupation governments surrendered. Refugees returned to systems they thought they would never see again. Across the galaxy, celebrations began long before the war officially ended. Yet humanity remained focused on the final objective, the enemy leadership. Every campaign had been leading toward this moment. Human intelligence services had spent years identifying command hierarchies, emergency relocation procedures, hidden installations, and contingency plans. Whenever enemy leaders moved, humanity tracked them. Whenever secret facilities appeared, they were quietly cataloged. Nothing had been ignored. Nothing had been forgotten. The final operation targeted the heart of the enemy war machine. A massive multinational fleet entered heavily defended territory where surviving leadership elements had consolidated their remaining strength. The battle was fierce. Desperate opponents fought with the knowledge that defeat meant the end of everything they had built. But by then the outcome was unavoidable. Their supply chains had collapsed. Their coordination networks were shattered. Their reserve forces were exhausted. Human planners had systematically removed every advantage before the battle even began. When the final command centers fell, organized resistance ended with them. The war was over. The announcement spread across thousands of worlds within hours. After years of destruction, silence replaced constant reports of fighting. For many citizens, the absence of war felt stranger than conflict itself. Generations had grown up knowing nothing else. Now the nightmare was finally finished. What happened afterward surprised me more than any military victory. Humanity stood at the height of its influence. Its fleets had become legendary. Its industries powered reconstruction efforts throughout known space. Its technology surpassed anything previously available. If Earth had wanted political domination, nobody could have stopped it. Yet humanity pursued something entirely different. They built. The same shipyards that produced warships shifted toward reconstruction projects. Engineering teams traveled to devastated systems. Infrastructure was restored. Transportation networks reopened. Habitat stations were repaired. Agricultural facilities returned to operation. Former battlefields became centers of recovery. Former enemies received humanitarian assistance alongside allies. That decision confused many governments. Some argued revenge would be justified. Human representatives disagreed. They insisted lasting peace required stability, not punishment. Once again, humanity chose the harder path. Years passed. Trade routes reopened. New alliances formed. Worlds that had never cooperated before began working together. The scars of war remained, but so did the determination to build something better. Eventually, I returned to Earth, not as a refugee, not as a soldier, simply as someone who wanted to understand the species that had changed history. I visited the same orbital regions where the Resolute had once arrived as a dying vessel. The shipyards were still active. Engineers still worked around the clock. Construction platforms still filled space with endless activity. The difference was what they were building. Exploration vessels, research stations, civilian infrastructure, the tools of peace. While observing those shipyards, I finally understood something that had eluded much of the galaxy. Humanity's greatest strength had never been its fleets. It had never been its weapons. It had never been its military genius. Those qualities mattered, but they were not the reason humanity changed the course of history. Their true strength was the instinct to improve whatever stood before them. A damaged ship, a struggling civilization, a broken alliance, even an entire galaxy wounded by war. When we first arrived at Earth, we asked for repairs. Humans gave us strength. We asked for survival. Humans delivered victory. We asked for help. Humanity rebuilt the future.